you guys are all Chase Bank executives, and I am a Chase employee presenting a new product. So as we all know, working in the banking industry, it is highly competitive. It's oversaturated. It's hard for any bank at this point to grow the business. For Chase, taking us for example, even when it was good, it wasn't that good. So we're looking here at what our growth was the last few years. And like I said, even in the good years, still wasn't that good. And that's because it's hard to find that growth. Even finding a new idea at this point, there's probably someone else that's perfecting it. So we have to expand the grasp that we're looking at right now to find a further reaching type of customer and product. So we have a lot of resources, but what you can see is our low margins, or at least we know that. But going a step further, where do those low margins come from? How do we have all these resources? How are we given second chances back in 2008? Yet we can't compete with our competitors. And I'm going to say that's because of our own reputation. So people have ideas that they think of us, and this Harris Poll is probably the best way that we can demonstrate what that reputation is. Our Harris Poll score is actually an indication that we have a fair to poor range of reputation. And a lot of that, I believe, is due to a couple different areas of the Harris Poll that are social responsibility and emotional appeal. Because we all know that we have the resources and we have the size to be the bank that we are, but people still don't like the idea of Chase. So where do we go from here? What can we do to find that next step? Now, looking at former inmates, I think is probably a good place to start because they're denied just the basic necessity of a savings and a checking. So things that we take for granted are something that they see a hand in the face. Now, just to demonstrate why that would be such an important task or direction to go is you can see that they are 8 times more likely to commit suicide than the general public. So that's a heavy number, but it shows how important it would be for us to go in this direction. Now, on top of that number is the reason that people go to that length. So we have not just the idea of suicide, but we have the idea of just depression and stress. And one of the leading causes of that is financial problems. So while there are a litany of reasons that someone could lead themselves into that decision, there's one, which is the financial problem that we can affect. So going a step further, we want to go into the Promise account so that we can start to find new ways to improve the lives of our former inmates. What we're asking today is a $2 million investment because we're going to struggle the first couple years, as you'll see, to actually build some revenue. But then, also on top of this, we see a quick break even with the Promise account. And this also is going to give us an opportunity to live our mission. So our mission is to create lifelong engaging relationships. And then we want to put the customer at the heart of every decision that we make. And going in the direction of these former inmates is going to help us live that mission. So what we want to do today is talk about how this product works. We want to talk about how this is going to help Chase, how it's going to help our bottom dollar, and then out of all the products that are out there and all the different directions we can go, why do we want to go in this direction? So let's talk about how it works. This product, again being the Promise account, is going to revolve around us picking the right sort of target market. So we need to see that our former inmates have a job. And once we see that they have a job, we can move to the next step, which is giving them that account. So we need to see that they have a job because we want to measure that they're committed to this second chance, or if you just want to look at us finding a metric to say these people are the ones that want to change. So once we establish that account, we start new metrics that are to build trust. So we're looking at the idea of having them meet different sort of requirements in regards to the account. So we have weekly deposit requirements. We have deposit thresholds that they need to meet. So we need to ensure that while they're making these deposit requirements, they're also continuing to build their savings. And then we'll have classes. And all of these are going to work in twofold. So one, we can make our former inmate a better personal financier. But on the flip side, it's another metric for us. for us to measure that we have the right sort of person in our account system. Because once we can establish trust, that's when we're going to start to see, and you'll see later here in a couple slides, how we're going to start to build revenue. So the idea here is we can trust them to jump into what we would call our least risky type of loan, which is a share loan. And that's going to be really the most crucial point here. So we're going to give them the opportunity to prove that they can actually manage a loan on top of just regular deposit accounts. So as we all know, a share loan is that loan that's based off of cash collateral in an account. So very low risk. So once they can prove that they can handle the monthly payments of this account, then we can start to expand the relationship. Now, the second part of this implementation is that we want to do it in New York. One, we know we have a strong footing in New York, but there's also the Work for Success program. And just in the past year, the Work for Success, to steal from their own name, has been very successful. They put 8,000 former inmates to work in the last year. And that gives us a very hefty target market to start with. But on top of that, this project of mine is going to be not only helping them financially, but giving them personal relationships as well. So we mentioned the classes that they're going to go through. As we all know, as we sit through classes, relationships starts to form, and that's what we're hoping with this program. So we want to touch them financially, but we also want to give them a person that they can relate to that's in a similar situation. So I've talked about how this product works, kind of give you a grand scope. So let's look at how this is going to help Chase. Now, what you can see here is the balloon in years 3, 4, and 5. And that's based off of us feeling that we're going to be able to expand the trust that we have in our account holders. So they're going to hit year 3, and they've demonstrated that they can actually pay back the share loan, as we mentioned earlier. So that's when they jump into auto loans and mortgages. And I think the most important thing for me to mention here is how conservative we are in these projections. So we aren't saying that everybody that is a promise account holder is going to move into auto loans and mortgages. We're actually saying 30% are going to go into auto loans. We're saying only 3% are going to go into mortgages. We've also estimated here that we're going to lose 10% of our account holders each year. So as we can see that there is a lot of benefits in regards to our revenue growth, we've been extremely conservative. And on top of that, I mentioned the quick break even. We anticipate a break even in year 3. So you can see we have done the work here to show that this project can be really beneficial, but let's get back to what I talked about earlier, which was the reputation of Chase. Now the theory of reputation is that it's worth 26% of a company's market capitalization. Chase right now, its market cap, is at $310 billion. So we play the game. We increase the Harris Poll by 1 point. And that's us being more socially responsible. That's us showing more emotional appeal. And we have the potential to gain another $800 million for every point increase. So there's a lot that can go into this project. One, just the project on its own will eventually be profitable. But we need to start making decisions that put us in a more, I guess, increase our own reputation. This would be our first step into doing that. So we talked about why this is so important for Chase's bottom dollar, both the project and our reputation. So let's talk about why this project over any other. And that's because of the good work we can do for the former inmates. The quality of life when someone gets out of prison, not that I can speak directly about it, but you can do the research. You can see the types of things that they have to deal with. And like we talked about, the basic necessity of a savings or a checking could be the difference where we could just know that that could happen in any institution we walk into, but the former inmate will see a hand to the face. It's a no, because of their past. And we can do the opposite. We can start building that relationship. So we talked about our mission statement again, is to build a lifelong engaging relationship. And we can do that by helping them with the deposit account. Then we start to build their savings. We start to give them a better credit score. And then they can start to apply for loans. Again, basic necessities that we take for granted. But all of this is to get the former inmate to start meeting societal norms. This is so that they can start to live the same life that we're living. And to go even a step further past that, we want to talk about their better life through relationships. So we talked about the twofold project here. The other is building those relationships with people that you know are in life situations. You can relate to them. So we have the classes, and we know that people will just start to interact with each other because that's what people do. But we also want to set up the organized meetings where we can have these people get back together so they can see how they're doing. And on top of that, it wouldn't even have to be how we implement it, but just the idea that we know we're going to be helping these people form more lifelong relationships outside of just Chase. So we've talked about how this project works. We've talked about how much of a difference this is going to make to Chase's bottom line, potentially. And we've talked about why we want to pick this project over any other. So if we could get back to the mission statement one more time, let's make the next decision where we want to put our customer at the heart. Let's put these former inmates at the heart of this decision. Thank you.
How did you come up with, I think you said 30% auto, 3% mortgage, and 10% will drop their account? How did you come up with those numbers?
That's actually based off of a regular metric that's in the financial system right now. So what you normally see is 30 to 50% go into auto loans. So we went on the low end. And you normally see 3 to 15% in regards to mortgages. Again, we took the low end. And 10%, again, is just what you normally lose on normal risky accounts. Because what you always have to remember is that every account, there's risk. So as we open accounts for any person, there's always going to be that risk that's involved.
What are the current reasons why financial institutions deny former inmates from opening accounts?
Well, I can tell you, I've dealt with a lot of these situations myself. So I've been inside the branch before, and what there is there's a system called check systems. And that's almost like checking your credit score, but instead of checking your credit score, we're looking for your worthiness in regards to just a regular deposit account. So what that measures is your past relationship with other institutions. And when our former inmates had been in prison, they've had trouble keeping up with their accounts, paying loans, the like. Even having fees being put on the account and you're not able to pay them. So what that results in is these prisoners being blocked later because it'll show up on their check systems report.
So you talked about like building trust and then being able to offer like loans, but like what are you using to measure how much you trust them and what program?
Well, I want to go to my slides here. Now, this is just the timeline that we see for the Promise account. None of this actually needs to happen, except for a few steps. None of this needs to happen in this order. But the trust that we're building on is these different metrics that they're able to first have a job and deposit on the account, but then they're able to meet our weekly deposit requirements. And on top of that, then they're meeting our thresholds. And then we have them open up the share loans that I mentioned earlier because we need to know that they can actually operate a loan. So different types of metrics that you would see at your own banking relationship, we just are going to be a little bit more stringent and try to mitigate the risk more than you'd see in any other bank account.
You mentioned something about Harris Poll score. Could you just talk about it, what exactly it is?
Sure. Harris Poll has 6, I guess if you want to call it, 6 different scopes of interest in regards to the Harris Poll. So this is strictly this company of Harris that's doing this poll through different customers. They don't even necessarily have to be a Chase Bank customer. They're just consumers in general. And what they measure is the strength of companies. And what we saw was the social responsibility and emotional appeal are 2 of the biggest factors. And a company of our size and our strength, we were alarmed at the fact that we had a very low Harris Poll score. On top of that, I would say there's more if you want to know in regards to the scores and how they work. It's basically just out of 100 is where it starts, and you can see, just like a letter grade in school, how we hit the 60 mark, and that's going to be us doing our D grade.
You mentioned, for going off the Harris Poll thing, that with a single point increase on that, we could expect potentially $800 million increase for market cap. How'd you calculate the $800 million for that? How'd you calculate the 800 million increase for that?
I have actually this slide here. So I think it's important to note that while this is a number you can calculate, this is still based off of theory. Now, as I was conservative before when I was talking about what direction we were going in with how many people were getting mortgages and auto loans, this is also the conservative estimate of reputation. So in general, the theory is 26% to 33% is the value of a company's reputation in regards to market cap. So what I did was taking that 26%, multiply it by the 310 billion, and then the 800 million is what was left over in regards to a 1 point increase by just dividing it by 100 and having that 1 to 100 scale.
I thought you were much more relaxed than last time, which was nice to see that you weren't as nervous or as like jittery with your words, I guess. That was nice.
I think, for me at least, it's very easy to listen to you speak, and it's captivating. The one critique I might have is, I kind of got the mission statement with this presentation, but it was kind of maybe slow getting there, and wasn't as laid out as I might have liked it, but
Yeah.
overall, I thought it was really good.
Thank you.
I agree with Marshall, and you engage the audience very easily with your style, and you're easy to listen to, and if anything, I want to encourage a little bit more of your confidence, because I see it coming in. I've seen that you have practiced, and you have a lot of potential there being an engaged speaker. My critique is that I think that you could have gotten to the connection with the Harris poll and how it would affect Chase from a quantitative perspective. I think you could have gotten there more quickly, and I think you could have pulled that up front and said, a Harris poll is a window through which we have an opportunity to increase our growth share by working with inmates.
Okay.
And because you didn't get to it until a little bit further.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree that you seem much more relaxed this time than last time. And I think it was because you weren't reciting, you just felt more comfortable, but I think you might have gone to the side of like, you were much more relaxed, and so in explaining you became more wordy, and it could have been much more concise, especially like Wyatt said in the intro. There was times where I was like, you were kind of going on about a slide, and it could have been wrapped up a little bit sooner. I think like what they said, you're very animated in your voice, and I think that at times your hand motions could be restrained a little bit more, because you emphasize things very well in your voice already, and sometimes I would be distracted by your hands. But overall, I liked your idea.
Thanks.
I think the positive thing that I got was that I think you know what you're talking about. So you seem knowledgeable about what you present. But you had so many, I think, you had so many extreme quotes that if I listen to someone say those things, I doubt the eligibility or the idea of the whole thing. Like saying, well, this is the best idea ever, or we are the worst in the market, we're doing so bad in terms of keeping the customers happy.
Okay.
If I hear as an executive of Chase that an employee says so many bad things, I would say, okay, just why you are working at Chase if you think that it's that bad,
Right.
So
Yeah.
that was.
That makes sense.
I just noticed a couple of times, I think you were trying to figure out or remember what you were going to say, but I noticed you look down a few times, so just be conscious of that and keep the eye contact.
In one of your slides, you mentioned that quiz criteria. You might want to specify that more, because it doesn't mean anything to me.
Okay.
They've already kind of hit on most of the stuff, but yeah, the intro was kind of long, a little confusing for me initially, because we knew, you know, the growth potential, where can we do it, and how we're gonna do it, and the inmate stuff, but kind of shortening that. I like Wyatt's idea of, you bring the Harris stuff, is like, situation is, we're not living up to reputation, we're having issues with growth because of that. You know, Harris Board demonstration, opportunity to increase that as well as help other people is, you know, the inmates type stuff. So
Yeah.
it was kind of a long, you know, intro, and I think some of the stuff, trying to figure out what you were gonna say was trying to get through that, because I heard multiple times at the beginning, you dropped it after you got into the main body of the
Yeah.
presentation. But like Megan was saying, definitely relaxed, you got really good confidence on the stage. I like the fact that you weren't just doing the strict pillars, but you were so relaxed, you almost, I think you got close a couple times being too relaxed.
Okay.
Conversation was good, but then if you're also doing it to the Board of Executives, you just kind of remembering kind of the audience type stuff. But overall, definitely pretty good for stuff.
I'll be anxious to hear from you when you watch your tape.
Okay.
The energy, you're not controlling the energy, it's controlling you.
Okay.
And so the movements were not graceful, they're like this, okay? And you don't want that. And it's constant motion. So you need to watch this and figure out, is this what I want to look like? Now, whether it's relaxation or whatever, you're also grinning in really strange places.
Okay.
And a lot, and it's kind of shit-eating grin, which doesn't help your authenticity or credibility.
Okay.
So there's a showmanship quality about this that I don't think is going to serve you well in the boardroom.
Okay.
So I think it needs to slow down and, okay, it needs more gravitas than you're giving it today, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.